Have you ever gotten so lost in a book you felt like you were actually part of the story? Well, what if you took it one step further? Like, way further. I'm not talking about just dressing up for fun. I'm talking about finding some old family armor, hopping on a horse, and literally picking a fight with a windmill. Yep, today we're diving into the brilliant, kind of sad, and seriously funny story of Don Quixote.
So that's the big question, right? What happens when that line between fantasy and reality just completely disappears? Well, you get the tale of this nobleman from a place in Spain called La Mancha, a man whose imagination didn't just, run wild. It completely took over, found itself a rickety old horse, and went charging full speed right at the real world.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Our guy's name is Alonso Quijano. He's a minor nobleman with a major obsession. He doesn't just read books about knights and chivalry, he devours them. I mean, he lives and breathes this stuff. Brave knights, enchanted castles, evil magicians, you name it. It's like the ink from all those pages just kind of seeped right into his brain until he couldn't tell where the stories ended and his own life began. So he gets it in his head that the world needs a hero, a real knight errant. And the thing is, this wasn't just a sudden whim. His transformation was surprisingly organized. He had a whole four-step plan, like a checklist he pulled straight from one of his favorite books to build his new identity from the ground up. And he was all about the details. First, the name. He wasn't just Alonso Quijano anymore. He was the great Don Quixote de la Mancha. Then his horse, which was, let's be honest, just a bony old farm horse. But in his minds, it became the mighty steed Rocinante. He even digs up some old, rusty armor that belonged to his family. But the final piece, the most important piece, every knight needs a lady to fight for. So he picks a local peasant girl, a girl he's probably never even talked to, and in his imagination, she becomes the beautiful, unparalleled Princess Dulcinea. All right, so he's got the name, the horse, the armor, the lady. He's all set. Don Quixote rides out, all by himself, to find his grand adventure. And boy, does he find it right away. Because from this point on, the world he's seeing, it isn't the real world anymore. It's like he's living inside one of his books, with everything totally rewritten through the lens of chivalry. And this first stop is the perfect example of what I'm talking about. He comes across this rundown, dusty old inn on the side of the road. But what does Don Quixote see? Oh, he sees a majestic castle. The working women hanging around outside, they're beautiful, refined ladies. And the innkeeper, probably just a tired guy trying to make a living, to Quixote, he's the king, the noble lord of this grand castle. So naturally, he goes up to this king and demands to be officially knighted. The innkeeper, I guess, just decides to roll with it. I mean, why not have a little fun, right? So he actually performs this ridiculous knighting ceremony, all while the other people at the inn are just trying their best not to completely lose it laughing. Now that he is an official knight, he sets off to do good deeds. And it goes badly. Immediately. He tries to rescue a servant boy from being punished, but as soon as Quixote leaves, the boy just gets an even worse beating. Then he runs into some merchants and demands that they proclaim his imaginary lady, Dulcinea, is the most beautiful woman in the world. Well, they're not having it, and they basically beat him to a pulp and leave him on the side of the road. Luckily, a neighbor finds him and manages to get him back home. His friends, the local priest and barber, see the state he's in and they're like, we know what's causing this, it's the books. So thinking they're helping, they go and burn his entire library. But here's the really ironic part. To explain where all the books went, they tell him an evil magician named Frestone came and took them. All this does is add a supervillain to his fantasy world. It just makes it all feel even more real to him. Yeah, you can't just burn an idea away. Instead of curing him, telling him about this evil magician just proved he was right all along. Now he's more determined than ever. And he realizes he's missing one crucial element from the stories. Every great knight has a squire. And he knows just the guy, Sancho Panza, a local peasant. Sancho is, well, he's a simple, down-to-earth guy. So how does Quixote get him to drop everything and follow a madman? He makes him an offer he can't refuse. A totally bonkers promise. Come with me, Sancho, and I'll conquer an island and make you the governor. And Sancho, thinking about that power and wealth, says, you know what? I'm in. And this is where the story really takes off. This is the beginning of one of the most famous scenes in literary history. They're riding across these flat plains, and Don Quixote sees them. An army of 40 massive, evil giants ready for battle.
Of course, Sancho looks at the same thing, and all he sees are, you guessed it, 40 windmills.
Quixote is practically shouting, "Look, Sancho, giants, we must fight them." He is 100% convinced this is his moment of glory. And Sancho is just looking at these windmills, trying to gently tell his boss, sir, those are windmills. But Quixote isn't hearing it. He just tells Sancho that he's clearly too scared to see the truth. So, completely ignoring poor Sancho's warnings, Don Quixote lowers his lance, spurs his horse, and charges. The result is, well, exactly what you'd expect. One of those giant windmill sails just catches his lance and sends him and his horse flying. They go tumbling to the ground. Sancho runs over, probably shaking his head, and says something like, "See, I told you they were windmills." You'd think getting knocked flat by a windmill would be a bit of a reality check, right? Nope, not for Don Quixote. He's got a perfect explanation ready to go. It must have been his arch enemy, that evil magician Freston. He must have magically turned the giants into windmills right at the last second just to cheat him out of a glorious victory. Of course. And their adventures just keep going like this, one disaster after another. At one point, he attacks a whole flock of sheep because he thinks they're an enemy army. He tries to rescue a lady from some friars who he's convinced are evil kidnappers. They get into a brawl with some mule drivers and get beaten up. They even try to skip out on an inn-bill, which ends with poor Sancho getting tossed up and down in a blanket by the angry staff. It's just a constant cycle of delusion, pain, and humiliation. But there's only so much a person can take, right? You can only get knocked off your horse and beaten up so many times. And after all these failures, all this humiliation, the hard, cold reality of the world starts to finally chip away at his fantasy. The glory and honor he read about in his books, it just wasn't there. All he found was pain and sheer exhaustion. He's just tired, completely worn out, and he finally has to admit that this whole knight-errant thing wasn't anything like he imagined. The reality was just brutal and disappointing. It was time to hang it up and go home. So he gets back home, back to his own bed, and something really incredible starts to happen. The fog of madness, that whole fantasy world that he'd been living in, it starts to lift. He becomes lucid again. He sees things clearly. But in a really tragic twist, just as his mind starts to heal, his body starts to fail. He gets incredibly sick. And on his deathbed, with his friends and family around him, he makes this final, clear-headed confession. He completely renounces the whole Don Quixote persona. He says, "I am no longer Don Quixote de la Mancha, but Alonso Quijano." He reclaims his real name. And with that, his mind finally clear, he passes away. Which leaves us with the big question, the one people have been asking for hundreds of years. Was this guy just a madman, a fool who couldn't handle the real world? Or was he something else? Was he a dreamer, an idealist who believed so strongly in a better, more heroic world that he decided to just will it into existence, even if it was only inside his own head? Could you call him a hero in his own strange way? And maybe that's the real magic